We have new episodes dropping every other week. You can find them early on Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Music, or wherever you find your podcasts, or find the link below for our Megaphone landing page, and we will see you around the campfire. Hey, it's Paul.
Hey, it's Jess.
Welcome to Campfire Ashes. Now pull up a log. Let me tell you a story. The school bell rang. Tyler's eyes lit up. Christmas break was here. He rushed out of the class and down the hall, and he put his shoulder into an exit door at full speed, barely missing the hall monitor on the other side. They got on the bus, and he found his seat, and he waited for his stop. He was a big ball of nervous energy. It was a week of video games and doing nothing, and it was calling to him. He barely let the bus come to a full stop before he was standing at the door, and he hit the ground running, snaking up his driveway. He made a quick stop to the mailbox, pulling out a stack of envelopes, a few Amazon packages, and a bit of straw. He brushed the boxes clean and fought the urge to rip open the box right now. He loves surprises, but he still shook the box to get a little idea of what might be in there. And he pushed open the door with the envelopes in his mouth and his eyes fixed on the box. The curiosity was killing him, but something crunched underneath as he got to the porch, and he looked down and he saw more tufts of straw scattered around the landing. And he shrugged it off. Dad might have been down on the farm helping his brother. He'd always been able to trail whatever he was working on those days, and it always found its way into the house. Games were calling. He opened the door, and the house was quiet. Bits of straw scattered everywhere. He rolled his eyes. He might not have been the one to make the mess, but he'd put money on his mom making a condition of this week's allowance. He flopped down on the couch, console on, headphones on, TV on. He was ready to spend as long as possible on his favorite first-person shooter. And about 2 hours into his rage-filled expletive rants about how build was better and no build was ruining the purity of the game, he heard a loud thud from upstairs. He was about to get up, and he remembered a horrible moment about 2 months ago that taught him to never inspect any loud noises coming from his parents' bedroom. A quick, "Mom," is all that he was willing to do. He was in the middle of the game, and he was willing to take one earphone partially off his head to listen. 20 minutes went by, and there was another louder thud coming from upstairs. This one seemed much more forceful than the first. He took his headphones off quietly and made his way over to the stairs. That's when he noticed the trail of straw leading up. There were only a few stalks at the front door, but now there were just mounds of it leading up to the steps. When he inched closer to the banister and peered up, it was silent and still. A soft moan came from the bedroom, but he gagged and he ran back to the couch. He had almost made the mistake again. The idea of what his parents were doing upstairs was not something that was going to ruin the first day of Christmas vacation. 2 more uninterrupted hours later, and he was starting to get hungry and get hangry. And it was almost 6 o'clock, and his parents hadn't come down yet, and his eyes rolled thinking about it. They had just started counseling, and now they looked more like teenagers, sneaking up to the room and staying up there for hours. Sure, it was great to have well-adjusted parents who loved each other, but the idea of what went on made him sick. And he heard the stairs creaking, and he knew dinner was coming, and it was going to start cooking any minute, and he had at least a half hour more gaming before he eventually had to stop. The world froze. He didn't even notice until he tried to adjust his slouch that a pair of hands were firmly grasping onto him. He glanced to the corner of his eyes to see dark, long, wrinkled hands with long, black, pointed nails wrapped around his shoulders. They were dripping with blood and caked with bits of broken straw. He looked up to see a long beaked nose and a mouth full of sinew, and she gulped loudly as she swallowed, revealing yellow-stained teeth. Then she reached into a ragged sack that was draped around her body and dumped out handfuls of straw on the couch next to Tyler. She looked him up and down, seeming to size him up, and then fished out some more handfuls of straw. "I think that's enough stuffing for you." Her hands disappeared in the rags, again fishing around, and she talked. "Your parents are not doing a particularly good job of keeping you busy. So many undone chores, and you rot away in front of the television." And her gaze turned to the rags on her body, as the other hand joined the search in the tatters. He broke for the stairs, screaming for his parents, screaming their names, and he slipped on the straw covering the steps, but managed to stumble up the stairs. That thing seemed unconcerned. It was reaching into layers and layers of rags, and he burst through the door and gasped. His parents were both sitting on the bed, artfully arranged as if they were dolls. Blood pooled and leaked onto the floor, dripping through soaked bed sheets. Their stomachs were torn open and grotesquely stuffed with straw. He turned to run back down the stairs, and she stood on top of the steps with a sneer as she finished fishing around from her robes. I found it. Her gnarled form straightened, towering over him as she pulled out a long, curved, chipped blade. And she suddenly looked irritated and grabbed him tightly. Do me a favor. She stabbed the poor boy so violently, only the hilt was left poking out. Hold this for me. I left the straw downstairs.
What did they do?
So...
Why? Why, ma'am?
So this is the story of Frau Perchta.
No thanks.
And I was laughing last episode because you're like, well, this thing called, I'm going to butcher its name, but its name was a Perchta, and I was laughing because I'm like, oh no, don't go into it. And she was like, but that was another thing, and I'm like, okay, good, she didn't notice it.
Yeah, because it's in the lore, it's like, oh, in some like regions, they just combined this with Krampus, and it's Krampus.
Yes.
But like, Krampus ain't doing none of that, so.
So this is Frau Perchta, the Belly Slitter.
Oh, that just does not sound pleasant.
Okay, so this is an interesting one. So this is partially Christianity's fault.
Of course it is.
So this was originally a kind of an ice princess, similar to like the Yokiana, but like not bad. Like it was fertility and good tidings and all that kind of stuff. It was called Birchta, and it was basically like a white lady that tried to make sure that she had lost a child and wanted to make sure that like that didn't happen to other people. But she was also like the little things that come to be the Frau Perchta were still there. Like she wanted to make sure that the young ladies completed their spinning and things and make sure their chores were done. So what happened is, in the 12th century, once the Catholic Church really started to kind of like go crazy, like we hadn't gotten to the Inquisitions yet, but like this was like the beginning of the Inquisitions, the beginning of their like stranglehold on the European nation. They started to take all of the pagan traditions that were good and like not menacing and started to basically like twist those stories around, and basically they just keep screaming about like you should be doing this for the Virgin Mary and not for this Domina Perchta, when it's Birchta. And then by the 12th century, they had had done enough damage to morph this into what it is now, which is the Perchta, or the Frau Perchta, which was basically like a hag, or similar to like Krampus. Like they're kind of interchangeable, but she's a little bit more violent. Whereas like Krampus will like kneecap you, she's going to kill you. And she also has like Perchten, which are basically like a dozen minions of like like creepy little like winged monkey kind of things that come with it. But yeah, so like it's really interesting how like this started out as like basically a pagan god of fertility. She was like a beautiful white goddess, and then eventually turned into this ugly, like gnarled hag of a person with a beaked nose, and she always carried a knife around her. And like she was always disheveled and rags and everything. And that's kind of what became Perchta. And it's really interesting. So, like, basically, the concept is, as most of these things, whether it's St. Nicholas, whether it's Krampus, or whether anything else, it's basically the thing to keep people in line. But her shtick was you need to make sure that you have your chores in line, or you're spinning your silks, or you're spinning your clothing to make sure that like you're being a good devout person. And then if you didn't, she would kind of elf on the shelf this thing and come around looking and making sure that like all your chores are done and everything like that. If you did not, she would take the knife and slit you open, disembowel you, and then stuff your body with straw and rocks.
Wow.
I don't know how this helped.
But like, why?
I don't. Well, again, part of it is because Catholicism was like, no, this can't be a good person. So I guess the
Okay, yeah, but like, why? Why? Why that? Why out of everything? Why that?
So there's not really
Say less, bro.
so there's not really a like there was never really given a reason as to why this is. My personal like theory on this is because she was Birchta, the goddess of fertility and good tidings, that Perchta would gut women and like fill their stomachs with straw and rocks to basically like, haha, you're never going to be able to be fertile again, kind of thing. So it was basically like, I'm going to stuff you with rocks and straw because you're not fertile. Like that. That's my
Rude.
that's my reasoning. Like I can't really find anything
That
as far
makes
as
sense. It's just rude.
well, yeah, it's very rude.
But so then, why did she disembowel the husband and Tyler?
Because the reason is because Tyler was not doing his chores, not doing his thing. He was rotting away. It was basically just he's doing his video games and not being a good kid doing his chores. So she took it out on the parents because they raised a shitty child.
But sometimes kids are just little shits. They gotta learn.
I understand that, but unfortunately,
from experience, I was a little shit.
yeah. But unfortunately, if you didn't, yeah, Perch is going to come and gut you. So again, so she didn't used to be this. Like she used to be Holly, the winter goddess, and she would go through, and like her name would really mean shining and bright. And like that's why she's associated with Christmas, is because the shining and bright and shining night became like a thing where she was associated with like the Epiphany and things like that. So like she is still a Christmas monster, but that's how it always was. It was like making sure that like whereas it's taken to like the extreme of like what Saint Nicholas is or Krampus is. Like if you're a good person, you get rewarded. She would give you a silver coin if you were a good person. So like she paid you. Like she gave you money.
Yeah.
Which I have a feeling might have something. There's probably some muddling with like the Tooth Fairy legends and all that kind of stuff in there.
Definitely sounds like it to me.
But yeah, so like if you were good, if you had done all of your spinning, if you had done all your chores, and things like that, she would give you a silver coin, a big silver coin, which would be like when you're talking about the 12th century and all that kind of stuff. That's a lot of money. Like
yeah,
she would give you quite a bit. However, if you were bad, she gutted you.
I mean,
And
more incentive to be a good person.
Yes.
But like, so what happened with this? Was like, were a bunch of like Christians and Catholics like?
Mainly the Catholics. So like the Catholics, like a lot of a lot of what happened, like in our culture, is either a detriment from the Catholic religion or because of it. Like the whole reason why we have Christmas is because Roman Catholics and all that kind of stuff, Romans uh, started taking over pagan traditions and are like, we're going to wallpaper it over with Jesus. So like Saturnalia became Jesus's birthday, the Epiphany, all these things coincide with other pagan traditions that we just kind of wallpapered over with. And they couldn't really find a thing to wallpaper over because we already had the Virgin Mary. So like we couldn't have another woman to deal with who was also shining and bright. So like our Virgin Mary is like the Feast of the Virgin Mary, which is December 10th, I want to say. It's like December 6th or December 10th, something like that, which kind of coincides with Krampus Day, like which
and
is
Saint
like
Nicholas, yeah.
Yeah.
The Feast of Saint Nicholas. So
yeah. So like we already have those holidays, so there's no need for an extra one. So rather than wallpaper over her with something different, they just vilified her and she became like basically a demon. And like if you look a lot of the things, a lot of the her perched in things or whatever, she's really kind of indistinguishable from Krampus. Like she's kind of interchangeable, except she's just like the much more violent version of Krampus. Like she's
I feel like Catholicism, and like I was raised Catholic, so I kind of know what I'm talking about. Yeah, exactly. So like we kind of know what we're talking about, at least a little bit, to some degree. Like I just feel like they decided at some point, like, how do we like beat kids into submission without actually beating kids? Make everything scary and about rewards and punishments.
Yeah.
Because let me tell you, if somebody told me like, hey, do good things, or some half devil, half goat creature is gonna come and bust your kneecaps, I'd be doing good things.
So
I'd be terrified.
So basically, there's a book called The Old Magic of Christmas. It kind of like deals with this legend where she is like the spinning room lady. She's called the Spinnstubenfrau.
Okay.
Or spinning room lady, where she's often depicted as this beaked nose woman made of iron. So basically, like she has like a big ass piercing on her nose, dressed in rags, perhaps carrying a cane, and looks like an old crone. But she also carries
she spent all of her money on the nose piercing, and that's why she wears the rags.
Yeah.
Because back then, I bet that was a lot of money.
Probably was. And she also carries a long knife hidden under her skirt. But she also...
She's having a long knife under her rags. Who thought that one through?
I don't know.
That's what I want to
know. But yeah, so basically, she's kind of an offshoot of Frigga, the Scandinavian goddess, and both of them have like an obsession with spinning, and also domestic neatness. So this was more to keep the women in line as opposed to the children. But eventually it worked its way down to like kids. Like if you don't do this, well, it's more like if you don't do this, your mom's going to be murdered.
Yeah, so like it's kind of like step in a crack, break your mother's back, but like way worse.
Yes.
So like be good or your mom suffers for it.
So her thing was like she was not necessarily a Christmas monster, but more dealing with like the 12th night of Christmas. So like January 6th, which is Epiphany time, and this is when like everything would be fine. And once that happened, you were safe. Like once you had enough time to get to January 6th, you were safe, and the Perchna was not going to hurt you anymore. But basically, yeah, it was originally a fertility god named Birchta, who was shining and bright and championing there we go, championing women, and it became a thing in the Catholic church could not have that and turned her into an evil, crazy, belly-slitting psychopath that would occasionally give you silver if you were okay.
Not to sidebar, but didn't you teach English?
Yes. No, I
And
taught.
you
I
just,
taught. No, I taught math.
No, I'm just kidding. And just sidebarring because like I literally have published books and I'm terrible at words. English
Yeah.
language is hard.
It is. It is. So
I
like this
frequently
is.
can't talk.
So this is Germanic, this is Austrian, Switzerland, all these kind of things. That's why it's Frau Perchta, but there is Perchta in other things. But the Frau Perchta is like the specific one that is like the creepy belly slitter kind of thing, and it always has to do with the Feast of the Epiphany. But yeah, it was old High German, like proverbs and stuff like that. It's really interesting. It's to see something that started out nice and good and then became the subject of 5 centuries basically of propaganda and vilifying, and then by the time the 12th century rolled around, this was the most vile and evil, creepy thing to be coming around at Christmas time. Like, at least from the things that we've done to this point, it's interesting to see this start out as something very, like, hopeful and benign, and then through the machinations of the church become this bad and evil thing that became, like, again, if you look like Perchta masks, it basically looks like Krampus.
Yeah, and it's scaring you.
Yeah.
Don't look at it.
But the
It's
Perchta
scary.
is portrayed as someone who rewards the rewarder of the generous and the punisher of the bad, particularly the lying children. And it's more like Middle Europe, so Germanic, Austrian, Switzerland, that kind of stuff. But it's really interesting. I think it's cool. It's like, it was fun because like there were those parallels with the Krampus tales, and that's why I was laughing the last episode that we did, because you were like, oh yeah, there's this thing called Perchta, and I'm like, don't
You're like, don't take my thing.
like,
I swear I had no idea.
yeah.
So it's funny because we hear these stories for the first time when we're reading them. I don't hear Paul's prior to recording. He doesn't hear mine prior to recording. So while we're recording, if I'm reading, Paul will mute, and if Paul's reading, I will mute, so that we don't have like the initial reaction in the background when the other person's trying to read, so that we keep up, like the ambiance. Well, here I am, listening to Paul's story right now, and he's talking about how this lady just guts these parents and stuffs them with straw and rocks, and I'm drinking a Fresca, and I almost spit it everywhere. I was like, what the hell? I thought this was a Christmas story. This is the first time that, like, my characters lived.
I mean,
I let the children live.
have I let any of my characters live yet?
Yeah, in the Crossroad Demons, Lucy let that guy live. She just
No,
fucked up the room.
No, she didn't. No,
Okay, well,
she killed
okay,
him.
for the majority of the story.
Yeah, no.
It wasn't until years later when she came to collect the debt.
It was 1 year later. Yeah.
Okay, a year later when she came to collect the debt. Damn, okay.
Wait, have I let anybody live yet? Oh no. Am I a murdering author? Oh no. I
mean, if it helps, I think this is the first time I let people live. In the spirit of Christmas, they can live.
Yes,
don't get used to it.
In the spirit of Christmas, yours lived, mine did not.
So don't get used to it. A gentle reminder from life.
Oh wait, no. The Jersey Devil ones, they survived.
Yeah.
The Jersey Devil survived. Okay, yeah.
I knew one of your
we're
people
fine.
survived.
Yeah, one of them survived. I was like, wait a minute.
It has been a
It
minute
has been a
since I
minute.
listened to the Jersey Devil episode.
But yeah, so I think part of the thing that really kind of helped um, uh, solidify this once they were really trying to kind of turn this from the Birchta to the Perchta, is that like during this time in Germanic culture, like everything this was considered the burning times from like for a couple hundred years, where you had the Protestant Revolution, you had the 30-Year War, you had political instability, you had all of these people. Basically, also you had Germany had their version of the Salem witch trials, where as many as 100,000 people were accused of witchcraft, and many of them were killed. So all of this became a thing. So by the time the 1700s had rolled around, that's when like Frau Perchta was like unrecognizable from what she used to be, and was basically the boogeyman of the time period. Yeah, so by the time the 1700s rolled around, the Frau Perchta was basically like cemented into the culture and completely unrecognizable from Birchta, and the people that you either knew of Birchta or their teachings were either eradicated from existence, or so scared into submission that they never fought the idea. And Frau Perchta became like basically the law of the land.
If you heard the little Discord mute and unmute, sorry everybody, I sneezed and I didn't want you to sneeze. But okay, so that's how that happened.
Mm-hmm.
So Christmassy, you know, all the murder this holiday season. Your gentle reminder this holiday season that you're never safe. Be good.
And you had your Krampusnacht parades on December 5th. You have the Ronkast, which
I'm sure you did better than I would have. So
I know I screwed that. Became the Perchton time performances. So like you would have like the similar things going on in those time frames. But yeah, it's just all. So like yeah, the Frau Perchta thing, like the same thing that happens today is there are Perchton ceremonies and everything like held for tourists, and the ugly masks of the Perchta, which is basically just interchangeable with Krampus. All that stuff is now a thing.
See, that's cool though. Like in Europe, they have all these cool festivals, which like I think, you know, I say cool now, but like seeing it in person, I'd probably be like terrified.
Mm.
But they do all these cool things, and we just have like people trying to murder each other on Black Friday over deals, and a lot of traffic that makes me not want to leave the house until like mid-January.
I think part of it is just because like our culture is just not as old as European culture. Like
I know.
we've only been around a couple hundred years, and we have plenty of stuff here in the U.S. Like the amount of stuff that we have.
I don't want to have.
Yeah.
Many things I would like to go away.
I mean, do you want Krampus though?
I mean,
do you want Perchta?
Like, I feel like I'm a relatively good person, so I wouldn't be punished, but I don't want to take that chance. Like, what's their gauge of like morally correct, you know?
Finishing all your chores, making sure your house is neat, spotless, and tidy, and then also knitting your own clothes.
You lost me at knitting. I have like a pretty clean. Okay, I have ADHD. I'm a mess. So my house is like pretty clean, but there are certain areas that are kind of chaotic. So like I might get away with it and be able to talk myself out of that. I can't knit. There's no saving myself there.
Well then, yeah, you're in trouble.
Yeah, I guess she could stay over in like Germany. I guess. I mean, I'd rather her just kind of like fuck off into the sun, but this is fine too. Just stay away from me and my loved ones, and we're okay.
So since this is the last episode of the year,
Happy New Year!
Happy New Year, guys.
in a few
I really wanted to thank everybody who has come in. Like, we've had a lot of growth, a lot of people loving the series, and for some of you, like, we're either the only podcast that you listen to, or you're the most popular podcast that you listen to, which is like crazy. Like, I saw our Spotify wrapped,
Wrap.
and we have 35 people where our podcast is in the top 10 of their most listened to podcasts, and we have as many as 15 where we are the number one podcast that you guys listen to, and that's like awesome.
I mean, it's really crazy because we never thought, it would turn into what it did. We just kind of had this idea, like, I don't know, 3-ish years ago now, to do this podcast, and always said, oh, let's do it. We're going to do it. And we just kept putting it off for a long time until this year we were finally like, you know what? We're doing the damn thing. We did it. And you guys really seem to like it. So it's nice to know that it wasn't just something that we thought would be cool and nobody cared about.
And it's also been fun. It's also been fun. Like Jess is an author, and I used to write a lot and everything like that. So like this has really been a lot of fun creating new stories to do that are, like, our twist on the whole genre of these type of podcasts. Because like we're not unique as far as like podcasts go that talk about cryptids and things that go bump in the night, but I think our whole concept of like, let's write an original story that you've never heard, in addition to all of these things that kind of tie in some of these legends, I think is like our niche, and a lot of you really like the stories.
Fun creative outlet for us that also kind of gives me like a break from intense writing on my stories where I don't write exactly the same kind of content. So I'm like, oh man, this is requiring a lot of thought to put into the story and make sure that there's continuity and plot throughout a series, whereas this is just a short burst, like really fun concept based on research that I do about things that I did or didn't know about. And sometimes, like Krampus, I'll learn things I didn't know about Krampus when I kind of knew about the lore. So it's just fun to get to write these, but also to share them. Like, it gives me something to look forward to, like recording the episodes.
Like,
And
one of my
then
favorite
when they come out, the feedback.
So one of my favorite things that happened this year that like wasn't really like related necessarily to the podcast. Watch Holly is a Twitch streamer, and she did a Halloween episode where she was basically reading scary stories, and I got her to read one of our scary stories, and like her channel like went crazy.
Which story?
Over it. The Crossroads Demon story.
Oh, that's so exciting.
Yeah,
Oh
and like,
yeah,
and she.
send me that link. Is there like a link to the VOD? I want to watch it.
I don't know if she has it up anymore because like.
It's been a couple months.
Yeah, but I'll look it up and see if
Let me
it's
know,
still
just
there.
send me- I didn't know that happened. Like, I remember you talking about it, but I didn't know it happened.
Yeah,
It
so
really
like it was a lot of fun to like have somebody else read the story, and then people were just like you had people that were like on the
In the chat?
like, yeah, in the chat going crazy about it, and like
That's
just
so cool.
yeah, and they loved it, and then we ended up getting a couple new listeners out of it because they wanted to listen to the rest of the podcast and all that stuff. So like I had a lot of fun with it, so it was really, really nice to be able to do those things.
And I know we're both incredibly thankful to have all of you, because the traction that we've gained just from listeners and people joining in and finding it interesting. We were able to partner with the Geekscape Network, so we're part of it now, which never would have happened if people didn't care about what we had to do. So thank you guys for helping us grow and expand.
Yeah, we definitely appreciate it, guys.
And I can't wait
so
to see
yeah.
where this next year takes us.
Yeah, new stories, new legends, new lores, probably some more guest spots. We might start, if you guys want to start giving us stories, we would love to do listener tales and things like that. Or they don't necessarily need to be like your original stories. Like if you have like something that's happened to you and you want to tell us, like we would love to do those things. And have like a listener tales episode. I really want to do a listener
Yeah, I
tale
mean,
episode.
have any of you ever encountered, like the Jersey Devil, for example, or like it could be anything, like stuff we didn't even talk about yet. Like if you feel like you've had a paranormal or cryptid encounter and you want to talk about it, you want to write to us about it, do it. Where can they send it, Paul?
That's a good question.
Did we establish anything yet? Maybe that's
yes.
a task for the new year.
No, Campfire Ashes podcast at gmail.com. I had to remember the URL, but yeah, it's Campfire Ashes podcast at gmail.com.
Campfire Ashes podcast at gmail.com. You heard it here. Send us your stuff. We want to hear from you.
And then we will see you in the new year with brand new stuff. We love you guys. We really do.
We love
you. Thank you for an amazing year, or amazing couple months, and we're really looking to a full year of new content with you guys.
So cheers to 2023.
Yep. And remember, the last one out douses the fire. If you heard something, no, you didn't. If you're here with us next time, it means you made it through the morning.